Broadcasting from Dublin, Ireland, and around the world on TalkingBrawlsMMA.com and iTunes. You're listening to Ireland's premier mixed martial arts show.
This is Mike Dolce,
Ian McCall, James Little Evil Pulver, the Crippler Chris Levin,
Frank the Legend Shamrock.
Buffer, your voice of the UFC Octagon. And now...
we are back to Talking Brawls MMA.com podcast with your host, as always, Niall McGrath. Very special guest co-host here today. Obviously, Andrew McGann is away in Brazil. Johnny Shrager from mixedmartialarts.com is joining me as a very special co-host this week. How are you, my friend? Great to have you on the podcast.
Yeah, it's all good. Thanks, Niall. Yeah, pleasure to be here, mate.
Great to have him on. This man is great. Done some great work over in UFC 178. Some cracking videos up on mixedmartialarts.com YouTube channel. So do check them out. Obviously, a big lineup this week on the show. We have Eddie Bravo joining us to talk about his recent fallout with Royce Gracie and all things about his arrest in UK a couple of weeks ago and being deported and being unable to redo his seminars, but he is going to be back in February, I believe he said to me. He's rescheduled all those seminars, so if you're a JITS fan and you've booked into the seminar, check out the interview later on the show. So a really interesting interview with Eddie Bravo coming up from 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu later on in the show. We'll also be talking UFC Fight Night Sydney and UFC Fight Night Brazil in Uberlandia. Okay, let's get things kicked off. Great to have, obviously, Johnny Shrager on the show here with me this week. UFC Boston, Johnny, the card is really... They're building up this card to be an Irish card away from Ireland, really, with the amount of Irish guys are on the card. Obviously, Carl Penrod announced today. We've Paddy Houlihan. We've Conor McGregor, obviously, headlining the event. And we also have Norman Park from Bushmills up in Northern Ireland. What do you think the UFC's, are they looking at this venue? I was thinking during the week that, possibly it might be them looking at Boston as a potential world title fight venue and sort of testing the waters, because I know there's a huge Brazilian population in Boston as well as, obviously a mega Irish population there. I think there's up to 30,000 Brazilians in Boston. What's your feeling with with all the Irish-based fighters on the card there in Boston?
Yeah, no, I mean, fantastic. It's, what's the capacity of the indoor arena there in Boston? Do you know? I
think it's 20,000, Johnny. It's up around that sort of capacity. I'll have a look now here in a second, but it's around the 20,000 mark. I think the Boston Celtics play there.
Right, lovely. Yeah, I mean, I've always thought since going to UFC Dublin, and I know it's called the O2 Arena over there, isn't it, in Dublin, which is your sort of biggest... They
actually changed it recently.
Oh, they changed it? What's it called?
Three Arena it's called, because O2 bought over three mobile, so it's called the Three Arena now. There you go.
Ah, you see all these big blue chip conglomerates confusing things, aren't they?
That's it, brother.
Yeah, no. Well, when I went over there, the first thing that struck me, obviously, is that Conor McGregor could easily outsell that arena probably 3 or 4 times over. It's almost a shame, and there's no disrespect to the size of the arena, but really it was a shame that he wasn't able to perform on a bigger platform that night, because he probably could have performed in front of 30,000 people. Yeah. It was that the nation seemed to be swept up by the Conor McGregor mania. But no, I think that would probably make sense, because as we all know over here in Europe, specifically the UK and Ireland, our weather isn't great. So you're always going to have those weather issues, and it's always going to be a concern. If you book an outdoor stadium, you're always going to have that slight unpredictability of the weather. So if you're basing it on the fact that you can fill an arena twice the size over in Boston as what you've got as the Three Arena, then I suppose logistically it probably makes sense to have an indoor arena somewhere that they can fill should Conor fight for the title. But he's becoming one of those kind of marquee name fighters, isn't he, where he could probably sell out an arena feasibly in most European cities. I mean, I hazard a guess at saying, you'll know better than me, but I reckon a minimum of 5,000 Irishmen would probably travel to most cities in Europe to watch this guy fight.
Yeah, yeah, we travel anywhere to watch. It's one great thing about Irish MMA fans and Irish, sports fans in general. We travel the length of the globe to go support our guys, and it's the one thing we can be a little bit biased at times, but it is the one really good trait Irish fans do have is they'll travel anywhere to watch their sporting heroes fight or play soccer or play rugby, whatever the sport may be. But looking at that as well, we look at Boston as a city, and it's obviously, as I mentioned there, it's huge Irish and Brazilian. Huge Irish and Brazilian populations and immigrants over there. Do you see, there's been a lot of talk of a stadium show in Europe, and potentially, Connor's mentioned, Lansdowne Road and Croke Park here in Dublin. Is that something maybe the UFC are going to look to possibly do, maybe 2016, maybe see how Connor goes, with a title fight if he disposes of Dennis Siver?
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously testing the waters, and I think they're trying to gauge whether that's feasible. I mean, I know obviously with Connor's kind of outspokenness and his inherent confidence, he already believes that he'd fill out the Aviva Stadium. You obviously being an informed member of the Irish MMA media and obviously an Irish sports fan as well, you'll be far better positioned than myself to know whether that's feasible.
Yeah.
Am I right in saying the Aviva, I mean, that's got to be 60,000, hasn't it?
Yeah, you'd probably be looking at it's 48,000, I think, all seater. So you'd be looking at for a fight, you'd probably be looking 60,000. Yeah, I think
the pitch.
Possibly. I do think Connor would sell that out. I'm not too sure about Croke Park, but I do think we would sell out the Aviva Stadium. Obviously, I call it Lansdowne Road because I'm old school, but it's known as the Aviva Stadium these days. But no, I definitely think Connor would sell that out. But whether it's going to be a realistic possibility this year, I think the UFC is, as we've mentioned, they're going to play the waters with the Boston thing and possibly look to take the fight over there. I see a worry about pay-per-view as well. The US market is where the UFC are really aiming their title fights towards, and there's going to be problems here if that fight's going to have to be on at 2-3 a.m. in the morning here with the residents, especially around Lansdowne Road. I think it's actually against the law here to do a gig that late or any sort of event at that time in the morning.
I think possibly with sort of policing logistics and stuff.
Yeah.
If you say that 60,000 Irishmen that possibly might have had an alcoholic beverage before 2 a.m. are going to watch a fight, there could be some policing issues as well, couldn't there?
Definitely. But where are we? When are we ever going to get this stadium show in Europe? Because I've been talking about it for so long now, Johnny. Is it going to be? There's slight rumours that possibly this Sweden card might be held up in. I don't think it's been confirmed for Stockholm yet. There's talk of possibly a stadium show, possibly Malmo or Gothenburg or somewhere like that in January. Has that been confirmed for Stockholm? Am I right? Have I been lost in translation there?
Yeah, no, I mean, we were hearing that touted last year, I think, in the aftermath of the Jones Gustafsson their fight. I think obviously, the UFC realised they could tap into the momentum of that fight and the buzz that generated, and maybe try and host the rematch at a stadium somewhere in Sweden, obviously, because Gustafsson's their kind of golden boy, isn't he?
Yeah.
And coming off the back of a very, very contentious decision loss, really, because he, arguably could have been given the nod there. So the rematch, had they have booked that immediately, that almost certainly would have sold out a stadium in Sweden. But again, you're going back to the climbs over here in Europe don't really lend themselves to the stadium fights, unless, of course, you're booking it in the summer. And again, there's no guarantees, but obviously you'd have to book it around the sort of June to August to September time. And that's why I was thinking, if you're thinking of time frames, obviously Conor fights towards the middle of January. Conor, as you know, he likes to be active. I mean, the guy seemingly wants to fight every 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Every 10 to 12 weeks. So if you tell Conor on January the 18th that he's not fighting till the end of July or August, I don't think he's going to be particularly happy with that. Even if he can wait for a title shot, I think the guy'd rather get back in there and fight again. So it's one of those, if for example, the UFC are just going to go for it and book the Aviva Stadium in, say, August, the likelihood is, knowing Conor as you do, that he'll want to fight sometime in March, April again anyway, just to keep himself in the groove.
Yeah.
And would feasibly, because I know people have criticised this choice of Dennis Seaver. A lot of people obviously say.
But what do you think of it? What's your opinion on the Seaver fight? Because a lot of people have been going, Dennis doesn't match up well. It's an easy fight for Conor. I'd be along the lines as well. But if you look at the division, there's no one available for Conor to fight. And as you said, he does want to stay active.
Yeah, no, it's a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, when you look at him, and you look at him sort of rude, intrinsically, he's a stand-up fighter. So obviously, you would say he's tailor-made for Conor in that sense. Yeah. I mean, there's no. You think it's quite unlikely that he's going to try and take him to the ground. However, I think I was listening to someone the other day saying that I didn't actually catch Dennis's last fight, but someone said that he was trying to mix it up a little bit and trying to secure a couple of takedowns. So possibly he will try and mix it up again in this fight and try and make things interesting. But obviously Conor, who's now a black belt, isn't he? Under John Kavanagh, is he a black belt or brown belt?
He's a purple belt.
Was it a purple belt that he was awarded?
Purple or brown? Brown, maybe.
It might have been brown. Yeah. Anyway, so he's obviously competent. He obviously, he obviously would fancy himself on the ground anyway against Seaver. But I don't know. Like you say, people are booked up. But that's why I say, in terms of the timing, if and when he prevails against Seaver, that obviously 95% of the MMA community presume he will.
Yeah.
A fight against a top 5 opponent prior to being given the title shot. So say if he fought in, I don't know, April, and then they were to book the stadium fight in July, August, that seems feasible. But then again, the kind of noises coming from the UFC now suggest that Conor will be given the title shot after the Seaver fight anyway, so that's probably not even going to happen. Yeah,
and interestingly enough, Dana White only said a couple of hours ago, it was announced that Dana came out and said, we've heard, Cub Swanson say that he's going to be guaranteed a title shot if he wins over Frankie Edgar. Dana White has confirmed that no one is in that fight is guaranteed a title shot. So it's going to be interesting. And I've a theory now, Johnny. I don't know if you're going along with this, man, but I've a theory. The UFC are obviously making a big announcement as well at this special night on November 17th.
Yeah.
Obviously they're going to, I think it's been confirmed that they're going to, outlay the whole year's roster first. But they're going to make a special announcement as well. And I believe it could be possibly something to do with the featherweights and possibly the winner of Frankie Edgar and Cub Swanson and the winner Dennis Seaver and Conor McGregor will do a season of The Ultimate Fighter USA versus Europe, and the winner gets a title shot.
Wow.
In August, sort of fight halfway, through the year in the summer. Maybe I fancy Frankie to beat Cub Swanson. I fancy, obviously, Conor McGregor to beat Dennis Seaver. And I think that was what the UFC could be thinking.
Well, yeah. I mean, so you fancy Frankie to beat Cub Swanson?
Yeah.
I was going to say, in terms of TV, obviously, we would hope that Conor and Cub, reign victorious in those two fights, because that could be electric.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, if Conor and Cub, I mean, Frankie, as we know, is quite an understated bloke, nice fella. You could be given a season of The Ultimate Fighter wherein Dennis Seaver faces off against Frankie Edgar, and you get one of the most underwhelming seasons.
A little bit like the one we just had with Frankie Edgar and BJ Penn. They were way too respectful for each other. There was no, really high level buzz going into that fight off the back of that season.
Exactly, but obviously that was just pure star power, wasn't it? That gave you any sort of element of excitement around that fight. But then, especially if you get Dennis Seaver and Frankie Edgar, you could be really underwhelmed, couldn't you? No. So, I suppose if that's the theory and that's what they're announcing, I suppose it's brilliant because it would up the stakes in that fight as well. Like we've said before, a lot of people just believe this will be a cakewalk for Conor.
Yeah.
So if you chuck in and make the stakes a little bit higher.
And the only reason why I'm not just saying that, but the only reason is we know Jose doesn't like to fight too often. He maybe fights once, twice a year. So after the fight he's just had with Chad Mendes, he's going to sit out till at least you're probably thinking January, February, March, April, May. Yeah. It's enough turnaround for obviously the winner of these two fights coming up. But from the UFC, if they want to sell something, if they want to make another Ultimate Fighter season, I don't think they've announced the season yet that's upcoming. I'm not too 100% sure on that, but from a business standpoint, it probably would make a little bit of sense.
No, absolutely. I think it's I think it's a very elaborate theory you've conjured up there, and I quite like it. The only thing is with timeframes. So say if they were to film an Ultimate Fighter at the beginning of next year, February, March onwards, that would feasibly, because then if they've got to then fight as a number one contender fight, and then Aldo has to wait out again, well, Aldo could be looking up to nearer 9 months before fighting again.
That's true.
If he'd be content to do that, but no, I mean, I actually hope you're right there. That would be phenomenal, and I hope you're right on the premise that Conor and Cub win, because that'd be explosive.
Yeah, that'd be unreal. And I had another theory before his last fight, but I'm not gonna, I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist here. I was thinking that maybe Jose was going to relinquish his belt possibly as well, because he's always complained about. It's a terrible cut for him at featherweight and wanted to move up to lightweight, but I don't think that's going to happen now. But what's your major take on what the announcement's going to be from the UFC? Is it going to be Gina Carano? Is it going to be something along those lines? Or
yeah, well, I only saw the email this morning. I must be honest. I've had an action. Well, for me, it was an action-packed day anyway. So I've not had time to sit back and properly theorise as to what it could be. I hope it's not something underwhelming, like that they reveal the official UFC fighter.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly. If it's something like that, then we'll all be disappointed. But I don't know. I mean, they're obviously going to outline the whole itinerary, as you pointed out, and they've got all these fighters there from all the main cards of the first half of the year. I don't know. Was there something else? I'm sure.
Stadium show has been mentioned as well.
Stadium show's been mentioned,
and then there's been a lot of rumours floating around. Maybe 3 different title fights on one night around the world on pay-per-view in different cities. Another little theory.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think they're trying to jazz it up, aren't they? I mean, I know that they've come under a lot of criticism in the past 12 to 18 months since they've tried this new format, the UFC, and they've tried to really expand quite aggressively over various continents. And as we all know, there is the argument that it has diluted the card somewhat. And I think they're just trying to re-inject a bit of that buzz into it. And I think these kind of macro level media conferences where they make these grand announcements obviously will serve to do that. That's obviously what they're trying to do. And any kind of innovative idea like you've just mentioned there with the 3 title fights in 3 different countries, I mean, that would be spectacular for any MMA fan.
They love that shit as well, those guys speculating on that stuff, so people will tune into the live stream.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, just before we get to the first interview, obviously there's other fighters on the card. We've Norman Park been announced on the card in the last week. We've had obviously Caleb Hendrick today, and then obviously we've had Paddy Hoolan announced on the card as well. To be honest, the card's actually probably set now. I've just seen here there's actually been a few more fights added today. Paul Felder versus Johnny Case. Obviously, we Paul Felder. If you're regular to the show, we Paul on a few weeks ago before his UFC debut, and he's a good friend of. I know he trains a lot with Eddie with Donald Cowboy Cerrone. So that's an interesting one. Lawrence Larkin, John Howard's been added. John Howard, obviously a Boston regular. The card looks pretty full already, to be honest, Johnny. There's 9-10 fights on it, and that's normally what the UFC are going with these days, is 10 fight cards. So maybe it's fully taken up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It does. I'm looking down the list of names now. It does look intriguing. Costa Philippou, Uriah Hall. Obviously, it's always compelling to watch Uriah Hall to see which one turns up. Yeah. The guy that likes to fight, or the guy that's a bit more reticent to put it out there.
I love the Jorge Masvidal Norman Park fight. I think that's an absolute cracking fight.
That's going to be Norman's litmus test, isn't it? Really, because I'm not saying. I mean, he's fought great fighters. Obviously, no one's in the UFC that isn't a great fighter, but Jorge Masvidal really is a top tier fighter. In fact, just looking at the rankings now, I remember prior to his fight with James Krause at 178, obviously that we both attended. Jorge was ranked. How's that work? Jorge's actually gone down a place in the rankings despite having beaten James Krause at 178. So I'm not quite sure how that's worked, but he is in the top 15. He's 13. I mean, how do you think Norman will get on there?
I think it's a really interesting one as well, because Norman's a guy, I believe, that he's going to stick around, and myself and Andrew have both agreed on this before in the podcast, that he's going to stick around the UFC for a long, long time. Norman's that type of fighter. He's not going to go, losing 3-4 fights in a row. He's just a solid performer the whole time. But I look at this fight, and you see the same with Masvidal as well. A really exciting fighter to watch. Something's going to give in this fight. I think both guys have been similar in the UFC tenures in their style, where they've been. Masvidal's been what fight was that at UFC Fight for the Troops? Jorge Masvidal had, and it was a really close decision. He lost. It was a cracking fight. Anyway, it doesn't matter what the fight was, but he's that type of guy. He's waiting for that explosive finish to happen, and I think something's going to give here, because I think both guys are looking for that. Norman's good. He's such a good boxer. I think we saw that in Manchester when he was so unlucky not to get the finish against I think it was John Tuck in Manchester. His boxing was so crisp, so good, so clean. In that third round of that fight, put some lovely combinations together. He's good against the fence and the clinch. Masvidal is a lot of the same. He's sort of that sort of fighter. We saw him against Pat Healy. He ground out Pat Healy. Something's going to give in this fight, and it's one I'm really, really excited for, because these two guys are they're definitely top 10 in my opinion in the UFC. I think Norman obviously hasn't fought the competition yet, but Norman's knocking on that door to get into the top 15, top 10.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a real test, though. I mean, like you say, I think
it's a test for both guys, really. I know you can say Jorge's fought probably the better guys in the UFC, but I think Norman is at that level. They've just taken a slower approach, obviously coming off the Ultimate Fighter Smashes victory, and he's unbeaten since then. So I really, really do like this fight.
Yeah, and also maybe a little bit of impetus on the back of his last fight, because like you say, both men were getting into that rut whereby they were kind of not eking out decisions. They were winning decisions comfortably, but shall we say unemphatically. And obviously Jorge continued that pattern against James Krause. He won the decision quite comfortably, but it was a decision victory. And I remember in the media day, one of the principal questions that was being posed to him was about, does he get frustrated with the criticism leveled at him that he isn't finishing fights?
I know.
Obviously,
you'd very
Norman
good.
In his last fight, he got the TKO, didn't he? In Dublin. So maybe that'll be the platform or the springboard for him to be a little bit more aggressive now. In these fights. However, against an opponent like Masvidal, obviously that might be a dangerous policy, but. Yeah, no, that is a very intriguing fight, and it has implications. If Park beats him, obviously he leapfrogs him into the sort of pushing top 10 of the division then. Yeah,
and no disrespect to Kotani, I know Norman did finish him in that fight. Kotani's a bit of a can. If we look at it, some of his fights, I think Damon Martin touched on it before when we did our UFC preview for UFC Dublin. The guy. He was in the UFC in a prior stint, and he got thrown around then, and actually lost to Jorge Masvidal as well before at one stage, interestingly enough. So I just can't wait for that fight. I think it's an absolute, it's fight of the night, along with that and Benson Henderson and Eddie Alvarez. I think two of them could be definitely one safer. And obviously, guys, we're going to get more. We're going to talk about that more, a lot more as that fight draws near, and hopefully we'll both be over there. You're planning on making the trip anyway, Johnny, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. No, hoping to be there with you. I think it could be, it'd be magical, won't it? Yeah. I mean, you can't really recreate when any country from Europe has a sportsman, and like you say, they get behind that person in the droves. You can't really recreate that atmosphere, so it's worth going for that alone.
Definitely, and then Sweden, hopefully the week after as well. Looking at the rumoured fight, Alexander Gustafsson versus Rashad Evans, a fight I'd love to see. Exciting times ahead in 2015, definitely. But we've loads more, obviously, coming up this year before then. So let's not get too carried away, Johnny. All right, Johnny, let's get to the first interview today, and we'll let the guys have a little break from our ranting and waffling. But just, guys, Johnny, where can the guys hit you up on Twitter if they want to catch you?
The latest permutation of my Twitter handle is at Man United, MANUTD, Shrager, so SHRAGER. As you can probably tell by the fact that the Twitter handle denotes it, I am a United fan. So if that dissuades you, then I'm sorry about that.
Well, look, you can all fuck off otherwise, because I'm a United fan as well, and I think they know that by listening to the show at this stage, if they're regular listeners anyway. And you can catch me obviously at Niall McGrath 4, at Talking Brawls, and at TBMMA.com, and obviously on the website if you're listening. And we loads of platforms, obviously on Stitcher, on TuneIn Radio. We're on Blueberry now as well, I believe. We're we're everywhere. You'll catch us everywhere. So no excuses not to listen in to Ireland's premier mixed martial arts show. Okay, let's get to the first interview today. I caught up with Eddie Bravo last week to talk all things about his banter and his beef with Royce Gracie. A lot of words being exchanged back and forth. He also talks about his upcoming seminar, which has been rescheduled after his arrest and deportation from the UK, and loads more as well. He talks about the Gracie family and all 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu stuff. So check that out, and we'll be back in a few minutes to talk about the upcoming fight cards this weekend at UFC Fight Night 55 in Sydney and UFC Fight Night 56 from what's the name of the place, Johnny?
Uberlandia.
Uberlandia, there we go. Pretty strangely named place in Brazil. So we'll be back in a few minutes to talk about them. So check out the interview, guys.
Hello, this is Johnny Hendricks, welterweight UFC champion. You're listening to Cock and Brawls.
Delighted to welcome onto Talking Brawls MMA.com podcast Eddie Bravo, founder of 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu. Eddie, first of all, it's a big pleasure to have you on the show. How have you been keeping, my friend?
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
Brilliant. We're absolutely delighted to have you on. Obviously, Eddie, there's been a lot of things about you in the news recently. Obviously, you had a seminar over in the UK across the water from us here that was supposed to take place. Just first of all, can you tell our listeners in over here what exactly happened with you being deported back to the US and those seminars obviously didn't take place?
Well, it takes about an hour and a half to tell the whole story. I tell it in my latest episode of my podcast, Eddie Bravo Radio, which is available on iTunes and Stitcher and YouTube. Just look for Eddie Bravo Radio, and then look for the title of the episode is UK Jail Story. It's a long, long story. But basically, I had 7 seminars booked in the UK, and I didn't have the proper work visa. And that's the basics of it, but a lot of crazy things happened. I got thrown in jail, and it was crazy. But like I said, it takes so long to explain exactly what happened. We don't have enough time today.
Cool, guys. So yeah, check out that on iTunes. You'll find it on iTunes. Hit in Eddie Bravo, and you'll get that up. Eddie, obviously, Royce Gracie has said a lot of things. He's had a beef with you. Things have been said to him that haven't been true. What is his problem? Is it clearly because he doesn't like your style of jiu-jitsu and what you have at 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu going?
I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is exactly. I mean, initially, he approaches me backstage and says he's mad at me because he thinks I talk shit on his family. And that was the initial beef. Yeah. And then once he realized that wasn't true, then now he says, oh, no, originally he was really mad at me because of my marijuana activism. And so at first he's mad at me because I'm talking shit on his family. Then he changes his mind. Now he's mad at me because of marijuana. So I don't know what's going on in his head. I just think it's surreal that the biggest UFC legend of all time is mad at me. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And he said recently, in an interview, I think it was with MMAfighting.com, that he said he'd punch you in the nose. Like, how do you respond to comments like that? It's because you've always been very respectful. I know in your book you've thanked the Gracie family and a lot of the guys and him personally as well.
Well, he's obviously angry with me, so he says anger-based comments. But I respond with photoshops and stuff like that. If you look at my Instagram, I respond with comedy. He responds with anger, and that's just our styles. Says a lot about who we are.
Does it bother you his disapproval of your lifestyle as well? Obviously, you openly you smoke marijuana. Does that bother you that he disapproves of your lifestyle?
Not at all. A large percentage of the population don't agree with my lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I'm used to it.
Yeah. Exactly.
He's totally not. He's totally not those type of people that would be on my side about things. He's one of those guys that
Yeah.
You can never change his mind. He needs an ayahuasca experience, really.
Yeah. And going back, obviously, just go back a little bit. Obviously, 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu, when you started up, you know, how did it come about? Is it because you've alternative sort of techniques, and you practice them? Your legs your legs are like your hands, in my opinion. You know, what was the main appeal to you about setting up this technique of jiu-jitsu?
Well, for me, the UFC turned me on to jiu-jitsu, so I was always obsessed with MMA. So I started doing jiu-jitsu because it was the closest you can get to MMA without getting hurt. So I got really into jiu-jitsu, but I wanted my jiu-jitsu to be as MMA ready as possible because there was a chance that maybe I might do it.
Yeah.
So if I had to do it, for financial reasons or whatever, I wanted my jiu-jitsu as MMA ready as possible. And that's where really 10th Planet all started. It's just me trying to make sure that the jiu-jitsu I got good at would translate in MMA.
Yeah.
That's all it really was.
And what's your opinion of the gi? Of using the gi in jiu-jitsu?
My opinion of the gi is it's better than nothing, but if you got no gi, I would rather do no gi. But back in the day, you didn't really have choices. If you wanted to learn technical jiu-jitsu, you had to go to a gi school, so you were forced to wear a jacket. But nowadays, there's more options, so you don't have to wear that jacket anymore, and I prefer not to. It's too slow.
And obviously, one of your mentors, Jean-Jacques, who he became a third-degree black belt under, coming up on the scene when you were younger and building your way up, and obviously you beat Hoyler in 2003, being a brown belt. How much of a mentor was he to you, to become the practitioner that you are now today?
Well, without Jean-Jacques Machado, I wouldn't be who I am today. He's the one who molded me and created me, and instead of stifling my creativity, he encouraged it and enhanced it. So I've said this many times, and I keep saying it. His fingerprints are all over the 10th Planet style. He's the great-grandfather of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu.
Obviously, as you mentioned there, he's embraced it and really love what you've done with 10 Planet Jiu-Jitsu. In 2003, you beat Hoyler in that first great match, off your back, and it was a fantastic spectacle. What was it like? Because I know he was an idol of yours, and he still is an idol of yours. What was it like back then, being so young, and to beat an idol of yours? How did that feel?
It's incredible. It's surreal. It's like another life that happened so long ago. It's really like it happened to someone else. Crazy.
And obviously the second match back there in March, obviously it was a huge contender for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Fight of the Year. Unbelievable fight. Obviously it ended in a draw. What were the emotions like after that? Because it was a long, enthralling contest. How did you feel directly after that fight?
Yeah, well, I was pretty much out of it. Threw up backstage. I was exhausted, but it was a crazy feeling. It was like a dream,
Yeah, it was.
I didn't tap him, but I was all over him, and I put him in a lot of heat, and it was really satisfying.
Yeah, it was an unbelievable contest. Looking at contests like obviously you've the Eddie Bravo Invitational, we've Meta Morris now. Obviously that was a great fight back at Meta Morris with yourself and Hoyler. How do you perceive these contests? Obviously, they're away from the point to point. The contest doesn't end unless there's a submission or the time limit runs out. Is it something that you really want to sort of get involved in to promote promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to the mixed martial arts fan and make them want to enjoy it on TV? Because there's a lot of mixed martial arts fans who don't particularly, embrace Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu competitions.
Yeah, well, my particular submission-only format, and there's several different ones. Mine is a little bit different than Meta Morris, and Meta Morris is a little different than Gracie National. and that's a little different than sub-league and so on. There's all these different formats at finishing only. I was trying to get promoters to do the EBI format because I didn't want to promote a show. I want someone else to do it. It's a lot of work. But nobody really was interested in my format. So I felt my format was the best to get Jiu-Jitsu on TV. And I would rather have Rappers Quest do it or, anybody else do my format, but everybody wanted to do it their own way, and which is understandable. I just wanted to do it the best way. So I ended up teaming up with Victor Babila, and he made it really easy for me. He made it so that I didn't have to do anything except promote it. And Victor's actually doing all the production and putting all the pieces together. Yeah. So now it's perfect. Now I can get my format out there and just do it in my own show. So it's I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I didn't think I'd have time to pull it off, but teaming up with Victor Davila, it makes it possible where I actually could do it, and it's not really taking up too much of my time.
And Eddie, what are your hopes and goals? Obviously, we've just had Eddie Bravo Invitational 2. What are your hopes and goals in the coming months and years for this Invitational?
I want EBI to be on American television. That's the goal. And blow that up, and pull Planet Jiu-Jitsu up with it. And continue to make music and just praise my son. And just keep doing what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Life right now is awesome. I just want to keep going the way it is.
That's what we like to hear, man. Good stuff. But, looking at, do you think the general consumer of obviously mixed martial arts, do you think there's a lack of understanding of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu game, and it'd be beneficial for, your hardcore fan to get in and watch these tournaments and, embrace them more?
Yeah, I would say a large percentage of the population doesn't even know what Jiu-Jitsu is. And same thing with UFC fans. Most of them don't understand what's really going on the ground. It's really hard to when you actually don't train. If you don't actually get in there, it's very hard to understand what's really going on.
And looking, obviously, the fight with Hoyler, the two fights with Hoyler, and obviously the last one at Meta Morris. What's your relationship? Obviously, the Gracie family is a big, big family, but what's your relationship like with the rest of the Gracie family?
I have zero problems with any of the Gracies. It's just Hoyt. He's the only one that is angered by me. I have a great relationship with Royce Gracie. Yeah. Tanner and Huron are cool with me, Chrome is cool. I just met Hickson. He's cool. I have no problem with any of the Gracies. I love the Gracies. It's just Hoyt. He hates it.
Do you think Hoyce also said about Henner and Huron? He said that they misrepresent the Gracie Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Do you think it's he's so old school and he doesn't want to change it? Do you think he doesn't like any sort of alternative form or different techniques to the ways that the Gracie went about playing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? Is that his main problem?
Yeah, Hoyce is old school. And he's going to stay old school. He's old school on every level. And sometimes that's good. Sometimes not so good.
Looking at guys who, there's a Gracie at the moment. I think Kyron is making the transition to mixed martial arts. Obviously, we've seen with Hodger and Hoyles himself that it didn't quite work out. Do you think he's the one of the next generation of the Gracies to sort of break through into mixed martial arts and possibly give it a good run?
That's hard to tell. He definitely has the winning attitude, the right work ethic. I don't know if he's going to be able to take down these guys. Yeah. These guys, if he's going to fight I would think he'd fight at 155. And how is he going to take down these guys? So, and how good is his stand-up? It's really, and is he willing to pull guard? If he's willing to pull guard, he has a shot. Because if he's not willing to pull guard, then that means that the only way he wants the fight to go down is if he's on top. And then it's going to be a very difficult path to try to take down these wrestlers in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely. And,
but he does have the close guard that will do that. I think he has a chance in MMA. He plays a really tight close guard and he attacks from there.
Definitely.
Not that very many modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu players have a good close guard. They kind of abandoned it. They all went to De La Riva.
And looking at obviously the other guys as well, you've guys like Sean Roberts, AJ Osgram. You've guys like Sean Roberts. Do you think these guys would, they'd make the transition to mixed martial arts well because they sort of go, all out looking for the submission?
I think Sean Roberts his jiu-jitsu would do well in MMA. Again, it would all be about getting to the higher levels. What are you going to do at the higher levels with these wrestlers, Any high-level jiu-jitsu guy getting into the UFC, any of them.
Yeah.
There's quite a few right now that just started doing MMA. High-level guys, really good.
Yeah.
The question's always going to be, what are you going to do in the UFC against wrestlers? How are you going to take that down? What is your plan? In the low-level shows, it's easy to drag down those guys. Just avoid college wrestlers. Match make carefully. And then you can pull off 6 to 10 wins really easily in the low-level shows. But what are you going to do when you go against a guy you can't take down? Are you going to rely on your striking, or are you going to pull guard? There are a couple high-level jiu-jitsu guys are making the transition to MMA, and it turns out they're really good strikers. So the wrestling doesn't become as important, like Chris Holdsworth.
Yeah.
That's one guy. His jiu-jitsu is super high level, and turns out he's a great striker. So every now and then you have high-level jiu-jitsu guys transitioning to MMA, and boom, we find out that they're really good strikers right away. So, they're lucky.
Yeah.
Most of these high-level jiu-jitsu guys, I would say at least 80% of them, they're gonna be like normal human beings where it takes 8 years to get your striking together. If it even does get together. So then it comes down to wrestling again. Is your wrestling good enough to take these guys down in the UFC? You might be able to take them down in these low-level shows, and that's the question. What are you going to do? You're going to pull guard or are you going to stand? Something to think about.
Do you think there's ever going to be a point, obviously we started out where, the main base for mixed martial arts back in the day was obviously with Royce, it was with jiu-jitsu. Then it sort of evolved onto wrestling, and it hasn't really changed much since. We've seen most of the champions being, really strong, high caliber, either strikers or wrestlers. And back in the early day, it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Do you ever see there's going to be a 360 back around where we see the guys that are leading the way are going to be BJJ players?
Obviously, because I'm a Jiu-Jitsu player, I would love to see that. It's going to take a lot better Jiu-Jitsu to do that than the level that we got right now. Because the level of Jiu-Jitsu right now makes it so that Jiu-Jitsu is not the dominant.
Yeah.
The dominant martial art. I mean, you do have exceptions, like Shrager.
Yes.
Striking and his takedowns are so good that they enhance his jiu-jitsu because he can get on top. So he can get on top and use his jiu-jitsu. There's a few that are like that. And that Damian Maia, he finally pushed through. Damian Maia at 170 can take down wrestlers.
Definitely.
So he pushed it. That took like 8 years, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a long time, and most jiu-jitsu fighters will give up on MMA before they get to that Damian Maia level or Jacare level. Those guys just persisted. They just never quit.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think the guys do give up on it?
It's just, they think that, man, it's just too hard. I got to work on my striking way too much. I can make so much money in jiu-jitsu. Why even bother? I can just stay in jiu-jitsu and make money there instead of myself through all that torture.
Yeah. And
that's how I feel. And I'm sure, you think about the guys, the high-level jiu-jitsu guys that have dipped into MMA for a little bit and then dipped out.
Yeah.
Those guys made the decision to not put their body through all that and just make money with jiu-jitsu. They're so huge on the jiu-jitsu scene that there's no need really to. They don't have to do MMA. There's enough money teaching jiu-jitsu where you don't have to, as long as you're high level enough.
Yeah. That's something I want to mention to you. Obviously, teaching jiu-jitsu, the guys, they're doing classes, they're getting money for that. But actually, under the IBJJF, you actually have to pay to enter their tournaments, the international governing body. And there's no money. I don't think there's any prize money for the winners. How do you view that?
I think it's ridiculous that the competitors are paying. I don't like that. Because when the competitors pay, because they're paying to compete.
Yeah.
Maybe the blue belts and the purple belts should pay to compete, but once you get to brown and black, they shouldn't be paying.
Yeah.
They should be competing for free.
Definitely.
Or cash prizes.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy that there's nothing for these guys. Obviously, another guy who's a good friend of yours, Joe Rogan. How did that relationship form? Was that through jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, we met at Jean-Jacques Machado Academy back in 96 or 97.
And you haven't looked back since?
Exactly.
Great stuff. Obviously, we're talking about mixed martial artists there and guys who's someone you really like to watch? Is there any fighter out there, mixed martial artists, that you really like to watch, and how do you perceive them, and how do you view them, and how they use their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the cage?
I like watching my guys fight in UFC. Tony Ferguson, Kelvin Gastelum, Alan Subban. I like watching those guys fight. Wael, Watson, Richie Boogeyman Martinez. I got so many MMA fighters, I can't even think of them all right now, but I like watching my guys fight.
And I was going to ask you that actually about Tony Ferguson. How far do you think Tony can go? Obviously, a great win coming off against Danny Castillo, and he's a fight coming up again soon. He's a guy that, since the Ultimate Fighter days, always sort of stood out for me as a guy with, really sort of high level potential if you can just get those few fights to break it into the top sort of 10-5.
Yeah, he has the potential to pick that belt. He's going to be involved in some very, very high-profile big fights. Tony Ferguson is an animal. Same thing with Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah.
Same thing with Alan Joban. They got the heart, the work ethic. They got what it takes to get to the top.
And obviously with yourself as well, is it like, do you have a mission? Are you basically on a mission to, transition Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, as we mentioned there, into, basically do that 360 move and get back into the limelight as being the most important sort of base as a mixed martial artist? Is that your ultimate goal?
I don't know. I don't know if I'm working to make jiu-jitsu the number one martial art. I guess so. Because you kind of have to have that mentality to make sure jiu-jitsu is at the highest level. But it's more. I love striking. I love when people get knocked out, and great wrestling is awesome as well. I just want to improve MMA as a whole. I want to see good striking. I want to see good wrestling, and I also want to see high level, super sharp jiu-jitsu. So, whether or not if we raise the level of jiu-jitsu, 50%, but then the striking gets raised 50% of the wrestling, I'll be happy.
Yeah, definitely.
I don't want the striking to look like shit. I want the striking to look good. I want the wrestling to look good. I just want the jiu-jitsu to look good, too. And right now, there's a lot of holes, and I feel that there's a lot of room for improvement when it comes to MMA jiu-jitsu.
Do you think that, there's people who want to obviously be serious about their mixed martial arts and want to have a good base with jiu-jitsu need to go down your route and look at the 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu stuff instead of the more traditional style of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
If your goal is to get in MMA and see how far you can get, I would definitely recommend mastering or getting on the road to mastering 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, because that's what we're all about. If I wouldn't recommend 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, then I'm doing something wrong. Yes, I have confidence that the system that I put together is it's a clinching-based system, and the clinching style is the best style for MMA. So that's what we're doing. And the proof is in the pudding. Just look at my MMA fighters. Look at their jiu-jitsu and MMA. It's looking pretty damn good.
Definitely.
So we're focused on that. We're focused on jiu-jitsu that's going to work when punches and elbows are being thrown. That's the main focus. Although dominating the submission-only scene is also a strong focus as well. So that's a newer thing, because the submission-only game is brand new. It's not brand new, but it's brand new. If you look at martial arts.
Martial arts, yeah, exactly. The sport's only a fledgling sport. Looking at, obviously, we mentioned Tony Ferguson there. That's some fight we have to look forward to against Abel Trujillo on December the 8th. That's going to be an absolute barn burner of a fight. But just another couple of questions for you. Have you any upcoming plans, yourself? Are you going to compete again soon, or what's your situation?
I am going to compete again. I'm not really thinking about it too much now. Who knows? Maybe it's Royce. It could be. But right now, I'm not thinking about it too much. I'm just enjoying life and focusing on my schools and getting my MMA fighters ready. I'm not really thinking about a fight camp right now and getting in that mode. But eventually, I will be.
Excellent. And any upcoming plans for Eddie Bravo Part 3 Invitational?
Yes, probably in February will be EBI 3.
Excellent.
And this one will be streamed worldwide.
Excellent. On live stream, or what platform is it going to be on?
Internet pay-per-view.
Internet pay-per-view. Okay, excellent. And just for obviously the fans on this side upon us in the UK and Ireland, are you going to reschedule any of those seminars, or what's the situation there?
Yes. The end of July, as a matter of fact, starting January 24th, I'll be in London. January 25th, I'll go January 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, take the 28th off, and then the 29th, and then finish up in Glasgow the 30th. I don't remember the order of cities I'm doing. I know I'm starting in London January 24th, and then it's Birmingham the 25th, which is Sunday. And then I forget the order, but I do know Glasgow is last on Friday the 30th.
And no Dublin, Eddie. What's going on?
You know what? I don't have a moon yet in Dublin. Eventually, though, I'm sure.
Definitely. I'm sure you get a big turnout here. There'll be a lot of people love to get a seminar under you. It'd be absolutely fantastic. Eddie, obviously a big thanks to you for coming on the show. I really do appreciate it. It's been a real honour to have you on the show. Where can the guys find all your work who are unfamiliar with you? Just
go to 10thplanetjj.com. Click techniques to learn the 10th Planet system online. Click locations to find a location near you. Got over 50 locations worldwide. Click Nibiru Forum if you want to hang out with the family, meet, and we're always hanging out on the Nibiru Forum. Click Store for 10 Planet gear. Got a bunch of stuff there. And if you want to hear horrible music, go to soundcloud.com/Eddie-Bravo. Thank you.
Eddie, really do appreciate the time. It's been a real pleasure to have you on the show and an honour. Hopefully we'll do it again in the future. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Thank you very much, man. I'll see you soon.
Big thanks again to Eddie Bravo for joining me there. Absolute top man. Interesting stuff there. Obviously, his it's more actually Royce's beef with him. Explained it quite well there. He's no ill feelings towards Royce, but Royce obviously has ill feelings towards him. So, I think a bit of exclusive news there as well. The fact he's going to be. He's actually going to be doing a not Metamoris 3, Eddie Bravo Invitational number 3 in February, I think he mentioned to me there. So, they've been going quite well for Eddie and getting a lot of interest, these sort of grappling tournaments, obviously like Metamoris. And, the likes of those tournaments. So interesting stuff there from Eddie Bravo. A bit of a legend on the jiu-jitsu scene, if it's fair to say, Johnny.
Well, absolutely, of course he is. Yeah, he's world renowned, isn't he? In those spheres.
Definitely, yeah, an absolute. What's the word I want to use here, Johnny?
Guru.
A guru, yeah.
Or pioneer.
A pioneer, yeah. The 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu is it's obviously quite a different. It's sort of a different form of some of the holes and things are different with
maybe
with
innovator.
10 Planet. Innovator, there we go. That's the word I wanted to use. I was about to say Mr. Motivator, but do you remember Mr. Motivator? Jesus Christ, we're old.
In his lycra.
We're old. I heard you go around in those lycra things at MMA events, Johnny.
Yeah, I like to pay homage to Mr. Motivator when I can.
But top man, big thanks to Eddie Bravo for coming on the show this week, and absolutely top man. So did enjoy that chat with Eddie. Obviously, Johnny, massive fight card this weekend for British mixed martial arts, for you guys across the pond especially, and you obviously being a Manchester boy. Michael Bisping against Luke Rockhold. We've heard all that's gone on. It's been absolutely fiery. We've seen the press conference. We've seen the conference call. These two guys really do not like each other. Really, really exciting fight in prospect. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I do. Obviously, I've got that local affinity with Michael. He's a northerner. They always announce him as from Manchester.
He's from St. Helens, isn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, he's more from kind of. I think it's Clitheroe. Specifically, I think it's more kind of he's Lancastrian anyway. He's a Lancashire boy, so he's near enough to Manchester. I think obviously the UFC cite Manchester because they draw upon obviously the sporting prowess that we have with United here, as you know yourself, Niall.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think they always cite Manchester, but yeah, he's local enough, so we'll claim him.
Hang on, I just want to ask you a question. Is this true? Hang on. Listen in. Is this true, Johnny?
Yeah.
Just listen in now. Hang on 1 second.
Topless weather in association with gravy. Ooh, Northern boys love gravy.
Is that true? Do Northern boys love gravy?
We don't just love gravy, Niall. We bath in the stuff. Yeah, no, gravy is exceptional. Funny you mentioned that. And this is no word of a lie. I had chips and gravy for lunch today.
Oh, lovely. You can't beat a bit of chips and gravy at the football. I know when I go to United games. I love a bit of chips and gravy. Oh, I can't beat it. Good stuff, Johnny. Good stuff. But yeah, I know what you mean about Bisping. St. Helens really isn't. You wouldn't call him a Manchester boy, really, if you're from around those parts.
No, we wouldn't know. But as I say, he's local enough for us to claim as one of our own, really. And yeah, we are fond of Michael. Obviously, we want him to do well. I personally think this is a very tough matchup for him. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, the betting lines though I think are a bit mad. I've seen him quoted, 5-1. 5-1.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to win the fight.
What?
Yeah,
you get 5-1.
You get 5-1 on Michael to win this fight.
And this is by any method.
Any method, match betting.
Yeah, that represents good value in the sense that obviously he's certainly worth a flutter. I mean, he's by no stretch of the imagination. Is it implausible that Michael could win this fight?
Being a guy from on the UK scene, the UK scene well, and what's the perception of Bisping now? Obviously, he that terrible eye injury, and he's still a really, really strong fighter. He's never going to get annihilated by anyone. He's really good kickboxing. He's a good technical boxer. He's durable. What's the perception of the UK mixed martial arts fan to Michael Bisping now? Is it sort of, he's a little bit on the downward spiral, or is he still going to be able to, possibly make a run for that title ever? Because, he's been so unlucky against so many fighters, and some of those fighters as well are coming off PED bans as well.
Yeah, it's that well documented stat, isn't it? That basically everyone that's beaten him. I know that Chael was controversial, but everyone that's beaten him, namely Hendo, Chael, and Vitor, have obviously all subsequently been discovered that they've been using the TRT treatment. So he's been very unlucky in that respect. I admire his response to that. He always sort of take it as it is and move on with it. He's not really lamented it or complained as much as maybe people in the media have complained on his behalf, which I admire from him. That's the sort of bloke he is, I think. I think he just knuckles down and gets on with it. But the perception is he's the perennial contender, isn't he? And he has been for a long time. Yeah. He's always been on the cusp, as we all know. And obviously, as the years progress and he gets a little bit older and he's got kids, and they always say father time catches up with you, especially in combat sports, boxing and MMA. Yeah. There is that fear that maybe, particularly if he doesn't overcome Rockhold on Saturday, that might that be it for Michael in terms of him being a genuine title contender. Yeah. I don't know about that, because obviously in the UFC, as you know yourself, a couple of wins can always propel you back into contention or into the picture at least.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he is getting on. Michael is the kind of person that, because he's so media friendly in the sense of he's eloquent and he's entertaining, that he's always going to have that role there with Fox over in the States. So there's always the question mark of how long he wants to put himself through this. If he had a couple of, say for example, he had a couple of knockout losses, I could see him hanging his gloves up maybe, because he's got that option to do the stuff outside the cage. But he also, at the same time, obviously, as you know, he's a very determined character. Yeah. He wants the title shot, and he's got the marketability, because he's European, because he's the flag bearer for us over here, and has been for so long, that it's feasible that he could jump ahead of a few people to get a title shot purely because he's marketable. So if he beats Rockhold, there are some people that say maybe you couldn't even argue with him with getting a title shot potentially immediately thereafter. I think is Rockhold ranked 5th?
Rockhold's 5th, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a solid fighter. So, you could argue potentially even that he could even warrant a title shot thereafter. I mean, it's unlikely, but you probably couldn't argue with it. So it's one of those. This is a massive fight for him. Massively pivotal fight. I don't know. It's a hard one.
But the one thing as well, I want to put this in there while we're talking about who you're going to pick. Yeah. Rockhold has said, and he said quite a lot leading up to this fight, he does not want to take this fight to the ground. Obviously, we know, he's coming off a really, really impressive victory over Tim Bosch, that triangle Kimura win, and before that, he came off a beautiful body kick win against Costas Philippou. And he's a guy who's, if you're looking at sort of a stylistic matchup with Michael Bisping, you'd expect him to probably go to the ground and look for that submission. But he said he hates Bisping so much that he wants to keep this fight standing. He's going to knock him out. No way is he going to win this fight by submission. He's going to finish Michael Bisping.
Yeah, he's got it, hasn't he? Because because there is so much animosity. He wants to. I think he's used the phrase "inflict pain," maybe something along those lines. He really wants to
drag it out.
He wants it to be drag it out. Yeah, he wants it to be emphatic. Yeah, so he's. I mean, but let's be honest. In the throes of adrenaline, when the fight's actually transpiring and taking place and unfolding, do these things really run through a fighter's mind? I mean, if he gets clipped by Bisping, surely his default mode of safety first probably come into play, and he probably will look to take things to the ground. Mind you, there's always the criticism level that he doesn't possess that power to really hurt people with one punch or two punches. So I don't know. It's a difficult one. Obviously, Rockhold justifiably is the favourite, but like Brian Stanton, I'm not name dropping here when I say that. I interviewed Brian Stan in Vegas. But no, I did. I had a really good.
And you can check out all those interviews on the mixedmartialarts.com on the UG's YouTube channel. There you go.
Oh, cheers, then, Niall. That was seamless. That honestly, that wasn't me. Looking for the cheap plug there. But no, while you say it, go and check them out. Go and check out the interviews on the UG. But no, in all seriousness, when I spoke to Brian, he gave a really, really in-depth assessment of not just this specific fight, but also the kind of middleweight landscape and the picture as a whole. Yeah. But when he was discussing this fight, he kind of said he sort of echoed the sentiments with me that obviously Rockhold justifiably is the favourite, but it's by no means beyond the realms of possibility that Bisping could pull this off.
I completely agree.
Do you see? How do you see? I mean,
if you want to stand with a guy like Michael Bisping, and we saw against Kung Lee how much punishment he gave Kung. just relentless, boxing combinations, kicking, great technical ability Michael has. And, it's not the smartest game plan in the world if Luke Rockhold is going to do that. We know, Luke can finish guys on the feet as well. But if Michael is just so durable, that's the thing. And I think, this fight's going to be a lot closer than people expected. I think Michael has a realistic chance of pulling this victory off. I think Luke might have got a little bit brought into the psychological things at the side of this fight. There's been a war of words. It's very unlike Luke Rockhold. And I think Bisping's got under his skin a bit. And I wouldn't rule out Bisping. He looks really pissed off, and he looked pissed off in the press conference yesterday. Both guys did. But I might go with the upset here. I might be one of the few guys in MMA media that are going to go with this. But I think Michael Bisping might grind out a decision here if this fight does stay standing.
Yeah, no, obviously, I hope you're right. And I think if that's the case, I think you should have a fiver on that.
Yeah. Yeah, but I'm not 100% sure. I haven't made my mind up on it yet because I changed my mind like that, So I'm not 100% sure. But I'll have the fiver on that. Which if you want to go at Rockhold, you want to back against your own countryman.
No, absolutely not. No, I mean, if you can get the 5-1 odds, I mean, if you fancy, you could pull off. Now, in fact, that you've informed me that he is 5-1, I think I'll be having a little flutter on Michael as well.
I just checked there; he's 3.75 to 1 on some bookmakers, but I know other bookmakers you get better odds than that. So I presume at least a 5-1 on one or two others. So I think it's definitely a reasonable. It's definitely worth the punt for an outside bet. But you have to wonder as well. And I know he came back and proved me wrong in the last fight, but I was very worried about Michael Bisping's eye. Before that, it looked nasty. It still looks nasty. But that Kung Lee performance sort of put me back on. He was so dominant against Kung Lee. It was a really, really good performance. But
it's purely aesthetic as well, isn't it? It's all about aesthetic over function.
Yeah.
If it's functioning completely fine, then I suppose aesthetically, it's sort of an irrelevance really in terms of.
Yeah, I think he worried about it a little bit too much in the Kennedy fight, but hopefully, he's going to be as good as he looked against Kung Lee. And listen, do not rule out Michael Bisping, definitely not.
Yeah,
and
I think that was actually. I think now that you say it, that was the exact phrase that Brian Stan used. So I think you should take that as a compliment there, Niall. That's exactly what he said. You can never rule out Michael Bisping.
There we go. Never rule out the Count Bisping. Great fight in store on Saturday night. Really can't wait for that one. What time's it on it, actually? Fuck me, man. The time difference is an absolute nightmare. I think it's late. It's early morning here it's going to be on. Is that right?
I don't know, I think Uberlandia, which sounds
evening.
like some sort of Narnia in some faraway Uberland, when something's uber great or uber sexy, it's like Uberland is just this amazing land that's not real. Anyway, so Uberlandia is the early hours, I'm sure. I think the prelims in Manchester on my Skybox anyway, which is the only time I go by. Yeah. It's I think that's 1 a.m, followed by 3 the main card. I've actually got a feeling that the Australian one is
9 a.m.
10. Yeah, but I think that's 10 p.m. here. It starts, so presumably the Bisping fight might be around midnight here.
No.
Have I got that completely wrong?
You've got that arseways. It's
really?
It would be. Hang on, we'll try and find it here. I think it's a morning time because they're 10 hours ahead in Sydney. So it's got to be morning here, on the fact it's on 5 past. They're going with the local times.
Oh wait, am I right?
Maybe that's a repeat show.
Mine will be a repeat. Yeah, so I won't be seeing it. Are you watching this on Fight Pass?
Probably on 5 past. Yeah, I think it's. Listen, we'll get the.
Yeah.
Hang on, we'll get it up here and have a look in a sec.
On BT Sport 1 HD. Nice plug for BT Sport there. It's 10 p.m. Saturday night. Yeah, that'll be, like you say, most likely will be a replay, won't it?
A replay.
That won't be live.
Oh, here we go. I have it up here. It's going to kick off. It's kicking off at, okay, they don't tell me the fucking time here. 10 p.m. Eastern time. So maybe you're right. Hang on.
No, well, 10 p.m. Eastern time.
Oh, American, yeah, it'd be morning
3
time
in the morning?
here. Yeah, no.
3 in the morning when?
3 in the afternoon. Hang on. 10 p.m.
Ah, 10
No,
a.m.
hang on. No, it's fuck me. Yeah. Oh no, it's 3 a.m. How does that work? Yeah. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 a.m. Yeah. Okay, you're right, Johnny.
Yeah.
3 a.m. it kicks off on Fight Pass. So 3 a.m. early hours of Saturday morning, Friday night / Saturday morning.
There you go. Right. So when I wake up Saturday morning here, I could find out the result, obviously, which I will do. There's no way I can avoid Twitter all day.
Yeah.
And then, okay, right. So got to wait all day to watch it. Are you on BT Fight Pass? Have you got the subscription?
Yeah, I do, mate. Yeah. So
is it worth? How much is it a month?
It's €15 a month, or is it €15 a month? Yeah, €15 a month. Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, it's definitely. If especially I find when you're looking back and doing a show like we're doing tonight, and you want to have a look at a couple of fights, you're doing an interview or something like that, because there's so many fights on these days. You can't remember who. The guy you're supposed to be interviewing was fighting his last 3 or 4 outings, unless it's one of the top guys in the division. It's a really good platform just to have a look back and see just have a little flick over the fights and pick out some information and get some questions together. It's a good database to have. I think it's worth getting, Johnny. Yeah, there you go. UFC Fight Pass. There's another little plug for you.
So it represents good value, does it?
Yeah, it's worth a punt or two anyway. Definitely not too bad. All right, moving on. Just before we get to Ross Pearson versus Ali Kent, another fight really really looking forward to on the UFC Sydney card. You can hit Johnny up on Twitter at
Man United Shrager, MANUTD SHRAGER, bit of a mouthful that. I'll probably revert back to my normal name at some point.
And obviously I'm at Niall McGrath 4. And any emails or anything like that, you can hit us up on talkingbrawlsmma@gmail.com. Okay, Ross Pearson versus Ali Kent, another fight really, really looking forward to this weekend. Ross Pearson coming off a really good performance against Gray Maynard, where he absolutely went through him in the second round, a dominant performance. And obviously before that we saw him win that fight against Diego Sanchez, probably the biggest robbery of 2014, and then that no contest with Melvin Guillard. So in fairness to Ross, is probably on a 5-fight win streak. Surely has to, with a win over a talented guy like Ali Kent, surely this is it's probably the biggest fight of both their guys' career to branch into that top 15, Johnny.
Yeah, you'd have to say so. I mean, it's outstanding at the lightweight division. When you think,
it's stacked, man.
I mean, when you think that Ross Pearson isn't even in the top 15, that really underscores the strength and depth that they've got there.
Yeah,
especially like you say, when he's just knocked out. Well, it was technical knockout, but he's knocked out Gray Maynard. He's beat Diego Sanchez by a landslide, even though he was robbed. I mean, it's frightening that he's not in the top 15, really.
It's unbelievable
for both. I mean, I would say it's on the actual ranking system in terms of, shall we say, prestige. It's bigger for Ali Quinta to get the scalp of Ross Pearson than vice versa, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, I think so. Yeah, because you got to look. I know there's a lot of people looking at this fight and going, Ross is on a 5-fight win streak. Ross isn't going to be thinking that coming into this fight. You can see how pissed off Ross was after that Diego Sanchez fight, where he was, I won that fight. And in fairness, the UFC gave him the bonus and all, and basically Dana said, you won that fight. But if you're looking for someone to push on, a guy who I think keeps improving every time I watch him, he get his stand up. He's such a crisp, technically good striker. He's good in the clinch. We've seen him destroy basically his last 5 opponents. As far as I'm concerned, I thought he was on everyone in the world. Thought he was all over Diego Sanchez. I think there's more at stake for Ross in this fight. Al's a little bit younger. I think Ross is 31, 32 now. And it really is. It's his time, and he keeps progressing as a mixed martial artist. And I do fancy Ross to win this. I just think he's going to be too technically strong for Ali Kent. I think he's more ways in which he can win this fight. I think Ali Kent sometimes tries to force what happens in the fight. I think we saw it against the fight against Mitch Clark, where he got subbed out. I think he tried to force that fight and got a little bit caught. I just think Ross has more ways in which he can win this fight. And we've seen Al. I think 3 of his last 5 fights have gone to decision as well. which sort of says something that he doesn't have that, finishing mean streak in him to get the job done. Where we've seen Ross, he's the fight against George Soteropoulos, he clowned the guy around.
Yeah, no, it's very true. But I mean, so if you're looking at the very latest performance though by Iaquinta, when he TKO'd Rodrigo Dam, that was impressive. That was an impressive.
It was, the guys under Matt Serra and Ray Longo in Long Island there and Henzo, and the guy he's a quality fighter, but I just think Ross has just these little elements where he's just more dangerous, and possibly the knockout power, possibly his technical ability on the feet's going to be a little bit better. I just fancy Ross. I think Ross has just made sharp improvements. I know Ross does start slowly, which could be a problem for him, and Al actually likes to go out pretty guns blazing. But Ross seems to, Ross can get caught. We saw it against Melvin Guillard. I know he turned it around very quickly, but he was rocked against Melvin early. Then obviously that illegal, what was deemed an illegal, or no contest, should I say, sort of ruined that fight. And I do think Ross would have gone on to win that fight. I know you think the opposite, but it's just something in Ross. I think there's a burning desire at the moment. We've seen over his last 5 fights, he's been able to step up to that level, and we saw it against Diego Sanchez. Really was the first example of it, where he's really sort of he's progressed solidly as a mixed martial artist without those blips of the losses in between fights. No, and he obviously Ross had that experiment where he went down to featherweight for a few fights, didn't he? Which I wouldn't say it wasn't disastrous. He did okay down there. I think he alternated wins and losses when he went down to featherweight. But obviously I'm a big fan of Ross as well. I think he'll do well here, but I think Iaquinta definitely represent. I mean, it's one of those risky fights because he doesn't really he's not going to offer an opportunity to springboard his way up the rankings. Because I would hazard a guess to say that Iaquinta is below Ross on the rankings, even though neither of them are in the top 15. But at the same time, he's a very, very credible fighter. And I think Al's one of these guys, and he's 27 years of age, but definitely a very underrated talent, probably.
Well, this is it, and obviously he trains out of that ridiculous team that you just mentioned there, Serra and Longo. Longo's trained his stand-up is improved. When he fought Rodrigo Dam, he knocked him out. His stand-up looked really crisp. In fact, the last few times I've seen Iaquinta, and I think he was on the Ultimate Fighter, wasn't he? Yeah, that's right. I even remember him on there. They've got that kind of unassuming stand-up style, don't they? Even sort of mimicking Chris Weidman. The thing with Chris Weidman is obviously he doesn't do anything stand-up where you think, well, aside from knockout Anderson Silva, I suppose, where you think, wow, that's phenomenal. But, in terms of technically, Chris Weidman, you don't look at him as a boxer or a Thai boxer. You don't look at things he does and think that's a bit unconventional or that's outstanding technique or anything. But it's just everything is just really crisp and really, really keeps it very simple, but it seems to be very effective. And Iaquinta's got a little bit of that with his stand-up as well. Everything he does just seems really smooth and tidy. And obviously he can generate a bit of power because he's TKO'd Rodrigo Dam in the last fight. Yeah. So he's definitely got to be wary, Ross. It's no formality. And like you said, he'll be taking it very seriously. But it's just a shame that it's not a fight that will propel him into the top 15. And I would probably say that Ross himself is disappointed that he hasn't got a top 15 fighter to showcase himself against here.
I think he alluded to yesterday in the press conference, I had a look at it this morning, that the reason why they didn't give him a top 15 opponent was because there was basically no one available to February and he didn't want to sit out too long. But it's definitely a risky guy to go in against if you don't want to sit out for a while.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those, isn't it? But it's I suppose that's the beauty of MMA as well. I cover a lot of boxing, as you know, Niall, and the beauty of MMA is that there aren't really many filler fights. I mean, I know, ironically, we opened the show talking about Conor versus Dennis, which some people are viewing as a filler fight. But, there aren't really many fights in MMA that you can say that aren't risky. That pretty much you're fighting anyone in the UFC, there's always going to be some sort of inherent risk there when you're encountering them. But I think that's the beauty of MMA. This is a risky fight, like you say, but hats off to Ross for taking it, I suppose.
Yeah, it's going to be an absolute cracking fight. And some other notable fights to talk about on that card as well. Just touch on one or two more there on the fight card. We have Robert Whittaker against Clint Hester. Robert Whittaker, a guy obviously who he was Smash's champion, a guy who's impressed me, but then he went through a little bit of a just I don't know what happened to him. He just seemed to didn't have enough in his tank. His boxing looks really good. It's always one thing. Whittaker seemed to be really impressive with that fight against Brad Scott, the Ultimate Fighter Smash's finale. Was a cracking fight. I remember watching that. Didn't dispose of Colton Smith, the American season winner. I think that was TUF 17, if not mistaken. And then he lost to Court McGee and then Stephen Thompson, but then won against Mike Rhodes at Tahuna versus Mark Court. And I think, the fact this guy is so young, I think, what age is Rob? He's 23. And he's a guy, it was just solely boxing he used to, win his fights on. But in his last fight against Mike Rhodes, I noticed, and it was probably coming off the loss to Stephen Thompson, because Stephen is obviously a decorated kickboxer, that he had to use his feet more, and he used that against Mike Rhodes. He added kicks to his jabs and his shots and his stand-up boxing. He developed and he progressed as a mixed martial arts, evolved. I think the term is we use quite a lot in the mixed martial arts media. This guy is a really impressively good kid, but the only thing, he's stepping up to 185, and Clint Hester is a big 185er. Do you think was possibly a little bit too soon to go up to 185, being a 170 pounder and being 23 years of age?
Yeah, I mean, am I right in saying he didn't step up? Are we sure Rhodes wasn't at 185? Did
Rhodes.
He step up after the TK loss to Thompson?
Maybe
or
he
is
did.
It this fight?
Maybe.
No, you might be right. I'm just thinking in my head whether he. I seem to recall he might have made the move up after the loss to Thompson, but I might be wrong. I could very well be wrong there.
I'll have a search for it now. But
let's have a look here if it was middleweight.
If you look at a guy,
no, you're right. No, it was welterweight. So you're right. He's making the step up here. Then is he to middleweight?
Yeah.
No, you're right. He's a big fella, isn't he, Clint Hester?
Oh,
he's a very big fella.
Very, very big 185er. Massive. Huge.
And like you say, it was a funny one, Robert Whittaker, because I was massively impressed by him as well. And then obviously there was the loss to Stephen Thompson, who, like you say, is a very formidable striker himself. But that was a very interesting fight there, because you thought prior to the fight it was one of those that seemed evenly poised, two brilliant strikers in their own right, even though I know they've got different styles, with Stephen Thompson having the more karate-based style, but both of them were kind of one-punch knockout artists potentially in their own, within their own style. So it was intriguing, but obviously Stephen Thompson got the better of that one.
Yeah.
But he's come back with the decision win. So he's thankfully it might not have dented his confidence that badly. I suppose it's about rebuilding, isn't it? But like you say, it's certainly a risky fight against Clint Hester at middleweight, who's a big fella and he can punch, can't he? So
and he's on a tear as well. One is his last 4 UFC fights, and most notably Antonio Braganedo, he beat in UFC Fight Night Swanson versus Stevens. He won that by split decision. The Dylan Andrews fight, I think, was about this time. Oh no, it was this time last year, December last year. He won by TKO stoppage. That was when Dylan Andrews blew out his shoulder. But certainly an interesting fight. But I really worry for Whittaker in this fight solely because of the power factor.
The power and he's given and the size. Yeah, no, you're right.
And the size, I think, he's a great boxer. He's a lovely, crisp boxer. He sort of implemented his footwork and used the kicks in the last fight. But I still think, I think Clint could be just a little bit too much from on the power side in this fight. I'm going to go with a Clint Hester victory in this one.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Yeah, no, it's I suppose the only favourable thing possibly is they're not putting him in there with shall we say, someone who's got a really impressive CV in terms of wrestling, because if they put him in there with a middleweight of the size and stature of Hester and coupled that with the fact that he was an amazing wrestler, then he'd probably just be smothered for 3 rounds, wouldn't he? But at least in this one he is going to get to stand and trade probably, which obviously is his forte as well. So he might not get as overpowered as if they were putting him in there with someone like Tim Kennedy.
Definitely.
So I suppose he's got a slight chance, but yeah, no, it's a baptism of fire certainly there in the middleweight division for him.
Definitely. And other notable fights in that card, obviously, so Pelele coming off, did he win his last bet? He did, against Pat Barry, coming off a nice win. Oh, sorry, he lost to Jared Rothschild last time out, and then beat Ruan Potts before that, and Pat Barry before it, and Nikita Krylov. So good bounce back for him. I know he was supposed to fight, I believe, who was he supposed to fight in this fight? It was pulled. Omaluchuk, I can't pronounce him. Daniel Omaluchuk, I think it is. My pronunciation is terrible, Johnny. But normally it's actually quite good, but I'm going to confirm myself here. He's fighting Walt Harris, who is returning to the UFC for his second stint. Interesting one there. Also, another interesting fight is Jake Matthews versus Wagner Rocha. Jake Matthews was on The Ultimate Fighter. Smashes Canada versus Australia last season. Young kid, I think he's the youngest fighter now in the UFC. Really interesting prospect in the lightweight division. Have you seen Jake Matthews? I'm not too sure if you have, Johnny. I don't think we mentioned this before we came on air.
Yeah, no, I haven't. No,
he's a young guy. I think he's only 19. He was on that season. I don't know if you saw that season, the Canada versus Australia last season.
No.
He's one to really look out for in the future. Just going to say that in the show. We're not going to really talk about the fight, but he's definitely one to look out for in the future. A lot of potential, that kid, to look out for in the coming months.
Just looking at his record there, he's undefeated, isn't he?
Yeah, really, really good kid. Big lightweight as well. He's a Jack. I think they call him Jack Babyface Matthews because he's only 19, I believe, 19 or 20.
Okay, he's got the Celtic kid.
Oh yeah, well there you go.
Is this a reason why maybe you brought him up as well?
No, not at all. Shut up! I ain't like that. You might get you on that, mate. No, but I definitely want to look out for guys. Also on that card, obviously our boy Neil Seary is supposed to fight Richie Vaculik, the bra boy. But that fight was obviously, it's been changed. Louis Smolka stepped in to face Richie now because of Neil's broken rib. Very unfortunate set of circumstances there. Obviously Neil, wishing him a speedy recovery and hopefully get on that Boston card if the ribs heal up in time. That'd be great to add another Irish guy to the Boston card. No bias here at all for a series. But it's an interesting fight card. Really looking forward to the Rockhold Bisping fight and Pearson Iaquinta, and there's a few other really good fights in that card, so do check it out. Obviously, if you're one of our listeners in the US on Fox Sports and it's not on Fox Sports, it's on Fight Pass in the US, and obviously on BT Sport here and Fight Pass, so do check it out. Moving on, a card I really do not have much interest in, bar one fight in this card. I'm not going to lie, Johnny. We talked about this off air. Ian McCall, a good friend of Talking Brawls, MMA.com podcast here. We've had Ian on the show plenty of times, and I said to you beforehand, I was aware of that fight, but I didn't realise it was on this weekend because this fight card, since Manu was pulled out, has really flown underneath the radar. The UFC have given very little promotion. I think they came out with a video yesterday of Shogun St. Preux with Joe Rogan talking about a promotional video. 3 days before the fight. And I'm annoyed with the UFC with this one because yet again, the flyweights, Demetrius Johnson in a fight, we were over at the card, covering the card in Vegas at 178. Demetrius Johnson versus Chris Carriasso, so very little promotion for the title fight, the main event there. If they ever want to build this flyweight division, it's guys like Ian McCall they really need to start focusing on. A guy who speaks his mind. He's a guy who wants to get this division put on the map. It's guys like him they really need to be getting behind, and it really is becoming something. I love watching the flyweights. I've always been a massive flyweight fan. I love their technical ability. I love the speed in which they combine everything together. I know, your casual fan isn't going to like it because you're not going to see the knockouts and finishes that you'd see in the heavyweight division, but these guys are some serious athletes and there's some seriously good fighters coming along in this division. But the UFC really need to start getting behind the flyweights as far as I'm concerned. What would your take be on that, first of all, Johnny?
Yeah, I agree. Obviously the obvious reason is they've gone for the marquee name, haven't they, to headline the show with Shogun. We all, as we know, John Lineker, probably the most un-Brazilian sounding name on the planet, but John Lineker is in fact Brazilian.
Yeah.
So, you're right. They possibly could have headlined with him, but at the same time, obviously,
I'm not even talking about headlining, Johnny. I'm just thinking about, give
terms of giving
give it more promotion.
I would agree. I would agree that this fight in itself deserves some serious attention, because it has real title implications as well in a division, like you say, that probably does lack a little bit of luster.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, you look at a guy like John Lineker, hands of stone, he can finish guys. We've Ian McCall. We've seen Ian, in my opinion, he won that first fight against Demetrius Johnson in, funny enough, Sydney in March 2012, where it was a draw. I had Ian winning that fight. He lost a rematch, obviously, to DJ. But Ian, self-admittedly, we've had him on the show here numerous times, 5-6 times, Johnny, in the past. And Ian's a guy, he's had a troubled past, at that stage of his career. He even told me, there was underlying problems, obviously, with his wife, his relationships, the whole Shane Del Rosario death. There was a lot of things going on. I think Ian has now, come to understand he must put himself amongst people he's comfortable with, so he can progress as a mixed martial artist. I think he's done that in his last 2 fights. We saw his victory against Brad Pickett, and before that against Hilardo Santos. The Pickett fight, in my eyes, it could have been a lot better of a fight. I think both guys were just eager to get the victory over each other, and Ian came out the better. Brad obviously had huge problems cutting weight. I don't like Brad at flyweight, I must admit. But when you have a guy like Ian McCall, he's a guy, he speaks his mind, he's brash, he's cheeky. The UFC should be really, if they want this division to succeed, they should be really putting a lot more weight, onto a guy like him, as they do with Conor McGregor. They need these characters in the UFC. They need these people to sell fights. It's not going to be, I can't see a flyweight title fight being a pay-per-view main event for a long time. Again, obviously we knew that Daniel Cormier, John Jones pulled out at 178, so they had to bump up the title fight, and they always say they'll never not have a title fight, not be main event on a card, so which is fair enough, but normally it'd be on a Fox card or something like that. But if they want this division to succeed, as I've mentioned, they're gonna have to start investing in guys like Ian McCall, giving them more of a push that they do deserve. And this fight's, I think it's a cracking fight. I think this fight is going to be actually a finish in this fight. I really do. No. I think Ian's going to either win by submission or John's going to win by knockout. That's the way I'm going. I think this is a cracking fight. Obviously, with the main event, with Jimmy Manuwa pulling out of this fight, it's taken a lot of shine, off the main event, and a lot of people, like me, like you, and like the other guys on a lot of the MMA media will be looking at the Ian McCall, John Lineker as potentially our sort of main event of the evening.
100%, yeah, and especially with the title implications as well, in the sense of if Ian McCall wins here. I'm just looking at the rankings as well here, because obviously the obvious nemesis for, well, there are a couple really. There's obviously John Dodson, who I think is an extremely exciting fighter. I think he dropped DJ, didn't he, twice when he fought him, and that is an obvious rematch to make in the very near future. I think he's got a knee injury at the moment, so it's obviously not plausible, but that's a very exciting fight to make in the flyweight division, to give it a little bit of a boost. Yeah. Because also the one criticism that's sort of recurrently levelled at DJ as well is obviously he's quite I want to say understated. I'm being diplomatic.
He's a nerd.
Obviously, he's quite a bland character in the sense of he's not that's what talker. And I don't. In fact,
that's what Ian McCall said. You are right. He doesn't make people excited about seeing his fights. He's a cracking fighter, don't get me wrong. He's unbelievable, but there's no real
fighter, and he's a lovely bloke. I mean, he comes across as a nice bloke, nice, good sense of humour. Seems like a funny bloke. I mean, bland has negative connotations, so I retract that word. He's an understated bloke, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not going to trash talk. However, when talking about Dodson, he does seem to irk him a bit, which suggests that there is a little bit of an underlying dislike of Dodson. He sort of does get under his skin a little bit, which suggests that there could be more fire in his belly if there's a rematch there. Now, obviously with Ian McCall as well, he's got that history with DJ that could make that could set up a future fight as well, like you say, with him, that could be very interesting. Yeah. And a win here over Lineker. I'm just looking at who's booked up in the rankings ahead of him, because I think you could have feasibly given him the title shot after the fight with Brad Pickett when he beat Brad Pickett, and in fact, we'd have all been more intrigued to see Ian McCall fight DJ at 178 in the main event. I don't know time frames if that would have worked.
I think it was. I think Ian's hand. He's a really fucked up bone in one of his fingers on his hand, and I think he get surgery on that. He suffered in Dublin as well. It's like a big lump. The bone's just completely knackered in his hand. So I think that was the reason. Did
he need time to rest it then?
Yeah, he needed. He'd get surgery on it. He can never straighten out his finger again. I think, which I think does pose problems for his power and his striking. But this fight, and if you look at the division, and we mentioned that, you just mentioned it there. They're not going to give Joe a shot.
No.
You look at Ian McCall. You look at Jussier Formiga's number 4. Ian's beaten Jussier in his days in Tashi Palace. You've Moraga, who's had his title shot, not going to get one. There's no one else there bar Ian McCall who's next up for a title shot.
Absolutely, there's no one else. If Dodson's knee is going to require more months to recuperate as well, I mean, there really is there's only a couple of names there that could even build any interest, any semblance of interest to fight DJ McCall now. So
Lineker and McCall, that's it, And I know Lineker lost Ali Bogatinov, who's had his title shot and subsequently been banned, but he's coming out a good win over Turkish Delight at UFC Fight Night, Cerrone versus Miller. So it's a really exciting fight. Who have you got? Who are you going to take to win this fight?
I just think McCall's elusiveness and he's relentless. I mean, he's relentlessly elusive, if that's even a phrase that makes sense, in the sense of his
pace.
But constantly elusive. I mean, he's a guy that doesn't tire over 15 minutes. Yeah. Like, the whole cliche of being the Duracell bunny. I mean, he literally is this guy. When I watched him at, and we've seen it firsthand when we saw him in Dublin, he doesn't stop moving for 3 rounds. Yeah. And he was getting stalked by Brad Pickett relentlessly for 3 rounds, and yet he didn't
cutting
tire.
Left, cutting right.
Yeah,
getting out of the angles and the corners that he was put in. He was making the transitions to create space and open up the octagon again.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think he threw in a few Irish jigs at some point. Didn't
he? He did indeed.
No, but in all seriousness, I think that'll be the key, because Lineker, even though obviously he possesses that ridiculous power, from what I've seen, comes forward a little bit. He's a bit more of a linear fighter. Yeah. He'll come forward, he'll stalk. He's sort of similar to Brad Pickett. Now, I'm not saying that he's not going to throw different feints or he's not going to have different bits of ingenuity to try and manufacture an opportunity where he can land the shot on McCall. But I just think McCall is just such a crafty veteran now. And he's got that, the evasiveness and the elusiveness. And I just think he'll probably see it out. Yeah. And he'll do enough to win the fight. I know you think that, as you mentioned before, that you believe McCall might force a submission.
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe it. I believe he'll take it on points. But I mean, I think it's possible also, like you say, that he could finish the fight, McCall.
Yeah. I worry, obviously, about John Lineker's weight. I know he got it on point the last time. He's missed weight in a numerous amount of occasions in his UFC tenure, and I think that's always going to be his problem about getting a title shot as well. The fact that you can't guarantee he's going to be on point.
When's the last time? That's an interesting point. When is the last time he missed weight? Is he?
He's made weight in his last 2 bouts.
Well, there you go.
But bang on, and he's had to drop the shorts and had the towel up as well. So right, you never quite know with John Lineker. Like, he's weighed in at 135 and a couple of, or was it 128, 129, 127. 3 of his first 5 UFC fights he missed weight.
But he has weighed in the last 2.
The last 2, which is good.
He's made the weight.
Exactly.
Well, I suppose if you make the weight 3 times, having had the bad reputation, then you've halfway dispelled it, haven't you?
Yeah, true.
So he then might be given the nod. Should he obviously prevail against Ian?
I'll probably agree with you on that one. I reckon Ian McCall's going to win. I think it's possible that he might get a submission, maybe a choke, something like that. But I think Ian will use his pace, his quick strike, and as we mentioned there, he can get himself out of positions, and I think he'll evade that onslaught from John Lineker. And I think if he takes it to the ground, I'd fancy Ian McCall to grind out something there, definitely. So I look for Ian McCall to win this fight. I think it's a full house there with myself and Johnny. But another interesting fight in the card as well, Johnny. Warley Alves, the winner of the Ultimate Fighter Brazil, is going up making his UFC debut. So that's going to be an interesting fight as well. Certainly his debut, his second fight in the UFC, his real proper debut, should I say, in the UFC. And Charlie Brenneman back on the card. Hopefully Charlie can get a win back. Obviously coming off a couple of hard losses again against Benel Dariush and Danny Castillo. So interesting stuff this weekend. Loads of action coming up this weekend. Johnny,
I always remember with Charlie, but one thing that sticks out with me with Charlie Brennan is when he got knocked out by Anthony Rumble Johnson.
It's crazy,
the head
isn't it?
kick knockout, and I think that was Rumble's last fight at 170, wasn't it?
Yeah, now he's a light heavyweight. It's crazy.
And now he's a light heavyweight, and Charlie's a lightweight. So it's ridiculous when you see the discrepancy now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy, man. You put the two of them side by side now, you laugh, and obviously. I always remember Charlie for taking that fight against Rick Story on 5 days' notice, and he beat Rick.
Yes, that one as well. Yeah.
Back in 2011, that was always one that sticks out for me with Charlie, but obviously hasn't worked out quite so well for Charlie since then. But I wish Charlie a good luck. He's a game fighter. You got to respect guys like that who take fights no matter what the circumstances are.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And Johnny, just before we wrap it up, great to have you on the show this week. Brilliant of you to step in for Andrew McGrath, who's away in Brazil, training his jiu-jitsu skills. Just for our listeners, I think they know from last week's show. But where can the guys hit you up, Johnny?
Yeah, no, I mean,
check out all your videos as well. I want to hear some absolutely quality video interviews from UFC 178.
Yeah, no, I was fortunate while I was out there I managed to kind of fashion a few sort of long form interviews. I got some good in-depth interviews while I was out there. It's in Vegas. So check out the UG's it's quite a fledgling YouTube channel. But if you go to mixedmartialarts.com, obviously the UG, you'll see the little icon there for their YouTube channel in the top right. Go and have a look there. There's loads of stuff there as well. Starting to spend a bit of time on the YouTube channel, putting up quite a few videos. So there's some interesting stuff there, MMA related, of course. And you'll see a few of my interviews there as well, which I got some really decent, in-depth interviews while I was there. So yeah, have a look on there. You'll find me on Twitter as well. And thanks for having me on now. Been a pleasure. Absolute
gentleman. And do check out those interviews. Some absolutely great stuff from Johnny. There's interviews with Mike Dolce, Greg Jackson. There's loads of stuff. Really good in-depth interviews. Definitely worth checking out. And you'll get to hear Johnny say, this is Jonathan Shrager from mixedmartialarts.com. So it's always worth a listen to hear that Manc accent. Absolutely hilarious. But what do you reckon? We're going to beat Palace this weekend?
Yeah, of course we are. Yeah, I'll be there. Obviously on Saturday, 3:00. The old school kickoffs, 3:00 on a Saturday.
Jesus.
I'll be there. We'll be Palace, won't we?
We're on at 3:00 on a Saturday. Jesus, is that the first time this season?
Yeah, we've got to have a handful of them, haven't we, every year?
Yeah.
Just to remind us of the good old days. Yeah, no, it's. Do you think we'll win? I fancy. I always fancy. Even under Moyes. Well, that's a lie. I didn't always fancy us under Moyes, but I'm always an optimist.
Nah, we'll get a win this Saturday. I'm not worried about us beating Palace. We should beat them. No problem. I'd say 3 or 4-0. Falcao back, hopefully. Couple of goals from him. Drop Van Persie, and home win. 3-0. There we go.
Yeah.
Di Maria with 1, Falcao with 2.
3-0 without. I mean, that's a big shout as well.
3-1. 3-1. We'll concede a goal.
I was going to say, you've always got to fancy us to concede a goal at the moment, haven't you?
Yeah, we're like Newcastle. We're under Kevin Keegan. We'll score 4, but then lose 5-4.
Yeah.
We'll score more 1 than you. It doesn't always work out that way.
No, it doesn't. No, obviously, we'll hopefully eradicate that, having to rely on that in the next couple of transfer windows. But yeah, no, we'll win this week. I think they got beat by Sunderland, didn't they, on Monday?
Yeah, on Monday night they lost. Yeah, a few controversial decisions, but yeah, they lost.
Yeah, it's at home, so that'll probably have dented their confidence. I think that Australian fella Jedinak got sent off, and he was pushing Wes Brown at one point, which I thought was quite brave.
Wesley Brown, what a man!
Well, yeah, he's the hardest man in all the town, isn't he? So I thought
With orange hair, beware.
With orange hair, beware. He picked on the wrong fella there, I thought. But yeah, no, we'll win, like you say, 3-1. I'll settle for that.
And just to remind you, this is a MMA show. We're just we're talking about our love, our passion, UFC. But guys, yeah, obviously do really appreciate you checking out the show. As always, you can catch us on a variety of platforms, on Stitcher, on iTunes. Obviously, subscribe on iTunes. We're on TuneIn Radio, also on Blueberry now, Podomatic. You get us everywhere. You can listen to us on every sort of platform. So do and listen as well. Check out Joe's show. Joe was back during the week there with episode 3 of Off the Brawl, where Joe looks at the business side of mixed martial arts and also looks at sort of past things that went on in Pride, and just sort of looks back in the day and talks about the business side of mixed martial arts. He caught up with Josh Gross this week in an interview. He talks about PEDs, Conor McGregor, and a lot of sort of business related subjects that have been going on this week in the world of mixed martial arts. And so it's definitely worth checking out. Josh obviously is returning with his podcast. Always a big fan of Josh Gross back in the day and Gross Point Blank, but Josh's new podcast is back, so do check out that as well. And big thanks to Josh for coming on the show with Joe during the week, and big thanks to Eddie Bravo as well for stopping by here on Talking Brawls MMA.com podcast this week. I think it's the first time ever, you know this, Johnny, that we've had only one interview on the show.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I think it's the first time ever. Episode 66. There you go. Is
that so you could have more of my dulcet Mancunian tones?
You wish. Oh, they're a funny bunch, those Mancunians. but just strangely enough, something just hit me today. I think it was because it's right. I put up my the live shows we do here as well. Yeah. On the thing, but I never sort of count them as the Talking Brawls MMA podcast episode, whatever. But this is actually 66. I think it's a bit of a curse.
Oh, dear.
Being the number as well. Yeah.
Crikey, yeah, you've got me on the cracker, haven't you? There is that the real reason no one would come on is because of the number.
I'll tell you what, it's not the reason no one come on. I just, to be honest, I've been sick all week and just left things a little bit too late. And I was actually going to try and get Ian McCall because I thought that fight card was on Wednesday night for some reason. Next Wednesday. So I was going to try and get Ian on, and I just completely, because it was lying so much under the radar, that just slipped my mind. Didn't really sort of look into it properly, but looking forward to that fight anyway this weekend. So listen, before us two idiots here bore you to death, big thanks again for you guys listening to the show. And we'll be back possibly on Sunday. We're still, myself and Fergus O'Farrell, if you've listened to live shows before, are trying to organise something of a regular day because Fergus started a new job. So we're going to be back soon with that show, and obviously we'll be back next week. And Johnny, do you want to jump on me again next week on the show while Andrew's away?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to.
There we go. Open invitation for the Shrager to come back on. So guys, from Niall McGrath and John Shrager, it's good luck and good night. Cheers.